Hey everyone, welcome back to the Fish Tank. It's that time again. Minion Masters patch notes. We got a brand new season, a brand new expansion, brand new patch. It's different ways of basically saying the same thing. Well, let's dive in and find out what we're going to be experiencing in this latest update. Okay, so this is going to be called Minion Masters Vanguard. And this is going to be an Outlander themed expansion. So let's find out what are we going to be getting in Vanguard. So Vanguard is going to be version 1.49. It's going to be dropping Thursday, the 3rd of August. There's going to be a free DLC. That's likely to be available maybe Thursday, maybe Friday. We'll see. That's going to include things like Siege Imperator Ruby, a legendary card. We got some brand new tournaments, and we'll talk about that coming up shortly. Of course, we're going to have a new season pass, some new cards, new cosmetics, balance changes, and some bug fixes. So let's elaborate on these different points now. So, let's talk about the tournaments first of all. So, we're going to have the regular Knights Duel number 27. This is going to be a 1v1 tournament. It's on August the 12th. That's a Saturday. And there's a $400 prize pool. That's a tournament that's been going on monthly for a good while now. But we've got some brand new tournaments. I'm bringing back my monthly tournaments. These are going to be called the Fishbowl Brawls. They're going to be 1v1 and 2v2 tournaments. They're play over time events, so it doesn't happen on a single day. It happens over the course of a month. Every round you get 3 days to complete your match. So hopefully it's more convenient if you're looking to, rather than blocking out an entire day, you can spread it over a longer period of time. So that's going to start on the 10th of August. So registrations should be open now. We'll put links in the description if you want to find out more and get involved. There's a total of 21,000 rubies available, plus various other things, including dynasty skins, packs, and all sorts of things like that. So if you want to get involved in the tournament, we've got you covered. And very excited to be bringing back the 2v2 variant as well, because there's no 2v2 tournament at the moment. A lot of people ask me for that, so it's back. And hopefully you guys will show your support by getting involved. And as always, remember, these tournaments are open to people of whatever ability, whether you're new, whether you're experienced, somewhere in between. They're open, there's prizes for everyone, and lots of fun can be had. So hopefully see you on the battlefield there, and look forward to seeing who comes out on top. Good luck! Now, as always, we have a new season pass. So we've got a couple of new cards, as always. We've got an awesome new skin. We'll look at that coming up. We've got some new avatars, a new emote, and as you can see, Outlander themes, a lot of Outlander cards in there. We've got a Setsu skin, a Ratbo skin, we've got a Rex skin as well. So if you're looking for some cosmetics, the Battle Pass has you covered. So let's find out about the new cards. So as you can see from the beautiful artwork here, this is the centerpiece card of this expansion. So this is going to be Prime Sargeant Raddick. Let's find out more about Raddick. Okay, so he's a 7 mana Outlander ranged minion. He's got 600 health, and he does 135 damage, but we'll talk about that in a little bit regarding how his attack is done, because that may or may not be the correct figure. Because the way, let's talk about it now, the way his attack works is he basically attacks in a cone. So there's 9, I think there's 9 projectiles that do 15 damage each. So if he's super close to something, then all those projectiles will hit it and it will do the maximum 135 damage. But if he's further away from something, then the projectiles will spread out. Some will hit its main target. Some may hit other things behind. So that's kind of a different sort of a different attack type that we haven't really seen too much, if at all, so far. So he can attack ground and air, and he has reduced face damage. But he does have an ability, and his ability is called the Rocket Jump, and this allows him to basically reposition himself to a nearby position. So the range, I'm not sure exactly what the range is. It looks kind of like the exclusion zone to Ruby, something like that. But it can basically move him around. So like all abilities, it increases in cost every time you use it. So it starts at 1 mana, and then each further time you use it, it costs an extra mana going forward. And it does 25 damage in a small area when he lands. So similar to the way Setsu kind of works with regards to the jumping and the moving around and the damage. Okay, so that's Prime Sargeant Raddick. And this is what he looks like. So he's basically just like an ultra space marine. So a really cool looking guy. And hopefully the mobility within the game, being able to jump away, jump onto bridges, jump behind tanks, things like that, will allow players to showcase a bit of their skill expression. Now, the second card we have is the Rapid Response Reserves. Now, this is a 2 mana Outlander spell. It's a defensive spell, which means you can only use it on your side of the arena. And it will summon either 6 Plasma Marines, 3 Drone Buzzers, or 1 Siege Breaker. Now, I think you'll get, the first thing you'll get from those will be random, and then they'll be in a set order. So you might think that's a lot that I'm getting for only 2 mana, but there's another side to this. So whilst you pay 2 mana and get these valuable units, your opponent has the cards in their hand discounted. So cards in an opponent's hand discounts 1 less mana until played. So that's basically your opponent's saving 4 mana. So this is kind of costing you 6 mana if you think it's costing you 2 and saving your opponent 4. But it's supposed to be like a defensive, oh my god, I need something and I need it now. And we'll deal with whatever happens after that. So this is the second of the new cards, the Rapid Response Reserves. Now, new cosmetics. Awesome looking Hive Queen Morellia skin. This is one of the best skins I've ever seen. And lots of people play Morellia, so lots of people will be looking at getting this skin, I'm sure. Now, as always, the cosmetics are all available in the Ruby Season Pass. And as well as this new skin, we're going to have as always, some new avatars for the new cards. So Prime Sargeant Raddick and the Rapid Response Reserves avatar. And of course, a new emote. So we've got the Prime Sargeant Raddick emote as well. Right, balance changes. So if you've been following along the content here on the channel, you would have probably seen the PTR, which were the proposed balance changes for 1.49 that we went through. So some of these will be familiar, some things will have changed or dropped out from that. So first of all, we're going to look at the buffs. What's getting stronger? Milloween. Milloween's getting a small buff to her Arcane Golem, so it's going to go up from 250 to 300 health. I think the Golem's pretty strong already. My main concern with Milloween is how limited the deck building options are with her. You kind of have to have Unholy Ground in there. You're probably going to have Kurnath in there. So a lot of the Milloween decks are very, very cookie cutter. And there's a small change to the Arcane Missiles. So the way that the Arcane Missiles got changed, that's her perk 2. They were changed to track units. The problem with that is if there was nothing there when you cast them, so if you missed them or something just died or whatever, then you'd get nothing. So what's going to happen now is there's nothing present when you cast them. You'll just get the old targeting, which means they'll just go in a straight line in that direction. So, small buff for Milloween. Next up is a buff to Jungle Jumble. So the mana cost is going down from 4 to 3, but it's getting a restriction where you cannot get cards that are already in your deck. That's pretty much it. Now, a couple of the new cards that we saw from last season are getting buffed because they were a little bit underwhelming. So firstly, Shrew Mama Shumi. Remember, she splits in 2 when she receives a positive effect, like a Spirit Rage, something like that. So what's going to happen is the split is going to have 70% HP and damage of the previous version of it. Now that's up from 60% before. And on top of that, the original is going to start with more health, 600 instead of 500, and more damage, 60 instead of 70. So base stats going up, plus split percentage going up. So before, after you had one split, you'd have two things with 300 HP and 36 damage. Now that's going to be two things with 420 HP and 49 damage. So quite a substantial increase overall there. So Shroomama should be more powerful. And similarly, Shroomer gets a small buff as well. So when it gets to the opponent's arena and splits, you get basically 2 copies of it instead of 2 80% copies as you got previously. Okay, so those are the buffs. Let's look at the rebalances. So rebalances, remember, are things that are changed in multiple ways or changed completely or just in ways that it's not obvious if it's a nerf or a buff. Okay, so the first rebalance we've got is Valorian. So Valorian's perk 1, Searing Light, that's his removal spell. It's going to be timer based instead of cycle based. So instead of it being a card added to your deck, it's going to be added to your deck every 25 seconds. Is it a buff? It's a buff if it's a heavy deck. I'm not really sure how sort of what the timer is, what you're used to cycling through your deck, what the timers normally are. But Valorian tends to have heavier decks, I think, so it's probably overall a buff. Now, one thing to note is with Empyrean Army, with the buff where you need 7 Empyrean cards in your deck, sometimes people use this perk 1 Searing Light as their 7th card. So they have 6 cards, no Empyrean Army at the start, and then this is their 7th Empyrean card once they get to perk 1, which triggers that buff on certain cards. Now, that will still work, but because it's not added to your deck, it's added to kind of your hand almost. It will only count as an Empyrean card whilst it's available. So that means if it's your 5th card or one of the 4 cards in your hand. So that could be interesting if you're using that, and you may have to play around that a little bit with the changes. And there was also a bug fix where Valorian wasn't healing the correct amount, was healing too little of perk 3. So that's a bug fix, but it's going to make Valorian stronger because of it. Right, next up we have a big change to the Armoured Escort. If we remind ourselves what Armoured Escort used to do, so previously it would give your next 2 ranged minions a sentry to escort them, and it would also give them marksmanship, plus 2 mana freeze. So previously it would effectively cost 9 mana, because it was 5 mana for the card, and then 2 extra freeze for the next 2 ranged minions. That's what it used to do. What does it do now? So now it's a 2 mana spell, but it has a separate trigger. Like we've seen a lot of the recent cards having these triggers based on basically being in mana surge, 6+ mana. So 2 mana, it will give shields to 2 friendly ground minions in the area that you cast the spell. So that's its basic ability. And then if you have 6+ mana, so you're in mana surge, you will gain 4 mana freeze, and the next ranged minion that you play is escorted by a crystal sentry with a shield. So that's another card that has 2 kind of abilities. It's a cheap spell card, or it's a cheap spell card plus this extra ability but costs you more mana freeze. So it costs either 2 mana or 6 mana, depending on how you trigger it. So always interesting to have these cards with differing abilities, depending on how you play them. Things like the Mana Chasers, remember, you can get 1 of them, or if you play them in Mana Surge, you get 3 of them. So extra choices to be made there for the player. And one further change, the copies allowed have been removed from this, so no wild cards on this particular card. Now we see a change to Blade Star. So the damage that it does is going up from 120 to 130. So that's a buff. But it's having a restriction on the number of max targets. So previously it would hit as much as it could hit until it expired. But now it's having a number of targets maximum of 10. And that seems quite a restriction. And when we actually look into it, it's more of a restriction than you think. Because the way Blade Star does its damage is, I think it does like a small AoE when it does its damage. So for example, if it hits a scrat, then it kills a bunch of scrats around that scrat. So for example, if it kills 4 scrats that's going to count as 4 of these 10 targets, as I understand it. So you can very quickly go through the number of max targets, and it will end its damage a lot sooner than it would before. So although the base damage is going up, I think overall it's going to be definitely less valuable. Okay, so some changes now to the Bounceberry Flingers. We're probably going to need a name change on this card because it's going to be the Bounceberry Flinger singular. So it's going down from 4 mana to 2 mana, but you're only going to get 1 of them instead of 2. Now it retains its Myriad, so that means it puts another copy of the card in your deck, but it doesn't give you the Myriad bonus that it used to do, where if you had them both in your hand when you played them, then you got the growth bonus, the Growth Burst Shroom giant growth bonus. So I mean, that makes them less awkward to play because you don't have to wait for them to come through and feel bad if you're only playing them one at a time. But they do get the Growth Burst Shroom added. So remember that the Growth Burst Shroom means that when you draw this, when it enters your hand, it will plant the Shroom in the arena. So we'll see a change to the Jade Flingers in a minute, and you'll see that I don't really understand why, but basically the Flingers, the Bounceberry Flingers, are now going to be the easily accessible Growth Burst Shroom provider. Okay, so that's some changes to the Bounceberry Flingers. Future Past. So this is a change that I really like with the future cards. So you're going to get a different card each time. So remember back in the day, APEP used to give you a random 2 or 4 mana card, and that was the card that you got for the whole game. APEP's perks were changed, and you get a different one each time. And that's reflected here, similarly. So you'll get a random 1-cost card that is reduced by 1 mana, and you'll get a different one each cycle. So that means that's going to be more interesting to play. It's going to remove getting perfect RNG or terrible RNG. So I think that's healthier. It also makes it kind of stronger because it makes it more difficult for your opponent to play against you because they don't know what you've got coming up next. So swings and roundabouts there, but a change that I definitely like. And similarly, Future Present is getting the same change, but crucially getting a mana reduction. That's 10 down to 9. That's a red arrow. That should be a green arrow. Maybe we'll fix that in post. Maybe we won't. But that's a good change for the mana reduction there. Okay. Next up, as we mentioned, the Jade Flingers. So they're losing the Shroom. Remember, the Bounceberry Flingers gained the Shroom. These guys are losing the Shroom. But they are going to get more damage, 20 up to 25. And their attack cooldown is going down from 2 to 1.9. So their DPS is going up nicely. And they've also had the death prediction fixed on the second Jade Dagger. So they throw 2 quick attacks. And what often happened in the past is if they threw their 2 daggers at one target, the first dagger may kill that target, and then the second one was going to be wasted. So the death prediction's been fixed, improved, so if the first dagger kills something, the second dagger can then go on and hit something else. So some more value there. Right, next up, Once Bidden. So Once Bidden used to be Once Bidden, and then it became Twice Bidden in everything but name, and now it's back to Once Bidden. So Once Bidden mana cost going down from 4 to 3, but it's only going to affect 1 minion. And the werewolf that it triggers potentially will have Rage. Now, one thing to note, because it's only a 3 and not a 4 mana card, you can no longer use it as one of your spells in Morellia to get her spellbook reduction. So this is going to be, it's going to make it easier to use because you only need to get it onto one thing. I don't hate this change. A werewolf with Rage is pretty terrifying. Right, so let's have a look at the nerfs. If you've been following along in my meta review videos, Minion Masters meta. Hopefully you've got an idea of what is very strong, and let's see if the things that we are highlighted as being very strong are receiving nerfs. And yes, some of them are. So APEP. APEP's perk 2, the Shield Totem. The cooldown's being increased from 25 seconds to 30 seconds. So less ability overall in the whole of the game to reduce the incoming damage on your face. And of course, a lot of the time you use that shield totem just as a cheap or free wall. So you'll get less free walls. Diona having a crossbow trap change. So previously the crossbow trap would do full damage to whatever, but now it's only going to do half damage to face. So previously it would do 40 DPS, 800 damage in total. 50% of that means that now it's only going to do 20 DPS, 400 total potential damage if it's left open for its full unattested for 20 seconds. So 50% face damage for Diona's crossbow traps. Elite Swarmer. This is a card. This is the card. This is probably the most played card in all modes. And it's getting only a small change. Attack cooldown is going up to 1.2 seconds. That means it attacks slower, so its DPS goes down. Probably not going to change too much. It's still going to do what it does better than anything else, but it just won't do it quite as well as it did before. Now, Kurnath, Crystalback is getting the same attack cooldown. Probably doesn't affect Kurnath quite so much because Kurnath's all about his spell trigger ability. And Morgul, the Swarmer King, also getting the attack cooldown. And again, Morgul, it's not necessarily about his damage, it's about his AoE on spawn and death. Now, Morgul's Mark, again, going back to my meta video, Morgul's Mark was absolutely everywhere, and nobody's particularly shocked it's going to get a nerf. When something's new and strong like this, it's important that it does get nerfed if necessary, but it's important not to over-nerf it, because then you end up in a situation where it's strong and then it's weak, and then you're kind of bouncing around between that. So, small change here. So the number of swarmers is going down from 6 to 5. So less overall value, but the overall time, I think that it spawns the swarmers is remaining the same. So that means that the swarmers will be slightly more spread out over that time. So their ability to swamp a unit will be reduced. So Morgul's Mark probably still going to be good. The fact that you can use it to take bridges if you use it smartly makes it so powerful. Right, Rocket Scrat. Damage going down from 90 to 80. Crucially, that means it can no longer kill Spear Throwers, Tantrum Throwers, Jade Flingers, Bounce-Free Flingers, or Chisma Boomsticks. So there's quite a few things there that previously it would just shred, whereas now it won't shred entirely. Unless, of course, it gets its second attack off, which often it doesn't. Now, another very strong meta card, the Stint. The attack, again, the cooldown's going down, or going up, sorry, so the DPS is going down. So 1.2 seconds to 1.3 seconds, so slower attacking overall. Next up, we have Siege Imperator Ruby, and as mentioned, Ruby is included in the free DLC, so make sure you grab that when it's available. Check on Steam and Xbox. Should be there from, let's say, Friday onwards to hedge our bets. So Siege Imperator Ruby, her health is going down from 900 to 850. Again, from my meta video, she was played quite a lot successfully, so not too surprised to see that. And another feature in those videos was Zip's Zappinator. So his ability, the more Zap ability, where you reset your attack and add another target to it, is having a cooldown on it. So previously you could just go chin 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 chin, and you could just as long as you had the mana, you could just keep reloading and instantly putting out that damage. Whereas now there's going to be a 2-second countdown between that. So there's going to be some certain situations where he won't be able to put the damage out as quickly as he could previously. And of course, overall, that's going to make him weaker, but probably still a very decent, strong card. Now, bug fixes. So, not too many bug fixes this time. A lot of the devs at Beta Dwarf are currently working very hard on Minion Masters 2.0. So obviously there's only 24 hours in the day. So if they're putting some time into that, they don't have quite so much time as they did before to get some of the bugs squished, but hopefully we got the most important ones fixed. That is, fixed players experience more than usual matches against bots. This last season has been a bit of a cluster with regards to bots. People getting lots of bot matches, people getting bot matches above the threshold where bot matches shouldn't exist. And really that just meant that the leaderboards for this current season, last season, whatever you want to say, were mostly irrelevant because, you know, people just got so many people got to GM completely undeserved by just beating bots. But hopefully that's been fixed now. So next season, the leaderboard should be more representative of what is actually strong and who is doing well. Fixed Jade Flinger's death prediction. We covered that previously. Fixed Milloween losing arcane charges when stunned. I feel like this is the second fix to this. Fixed the issue with the arcane golem text. And fixed Valorian's perk 3 healing too little. Again, we mentioned that when we spoke about the changes to Valorian. So some bug fixes there. So that is it. This is Vanguard 1.49. It's dropping Thursday the 3rd of August. Free DLC. We got some new tournaments. Check out the links in the description. Hope to see you in there. We got a new season pass. We got some new cards. That's Prime, Sargeant, Raddick, and the Rapid Response Reserves. We've got the new cosmetics, including that awesome Hive Queen Morellia skin. And of course, we've got all those balance changes and bug fixes. Now, reminder, don't forget to claim your Tri-Team Tourney, Guild Conquest quest, whatever rewards you have outstanding. Make sure you claim them before the season is over, or you may miss them. Now, as always, if you're enjoying the content here in the Fish Tank, make sure you hit that subscribe button, give us a like, and make sure you don't miss out on any upcoming Minion Masters news. What else do we want to discuss? That's pretty much it. Let me know in the comments what you think about the changes. Is the stuff that you're surprised didn't get nerfed? Surprised did get nerfed? What do you think of the new cards? And if you're watching this live on the Wednesday before the patch, there should be a video tomorrow which will show the 2 new cards in action. So we've seen them on paper, but that's only half of it. We'll see them in action and hopefully get a better idea of how they work, how to play them, and how to build decks around them. And just a reminder, I recently made a cool video based on a replay. If you've got any cool replays, be prepared to send them to me. That's weird phrasing. I would love to check them out, and if they're cool, we'll make some video content over and about them. Just hit me up on Discord, send me an email, replay at baddestfish80.com, or just find me wherever you find me. Come into the stream, and I'll look forward to seeing you tomorrow during patch day, where we get to check out the new cards, new balances, and see how things are. And as always, I'm about to awkwardly wave.